Welcome to class, students. Today, we'll be looking at a topic on communication process. Communication is a dynamic, over-involving process without distinct starting or ending point. It cannot be understood by examining individual elements in isolation. Words, sentence, and gesture. Communication gains meaning only when viewed as a part of this ongoing exchange. Understanding communication requires observing how our actions and words influence others' responses and how their responses in turn affect us. We must recognize how our own personal growth and changes impact how we perceive, interpret, and interact with others across different time scales, from immediate moments to decades. Components process of communication. We have the source, which can be referred to as the sender, the audience or receiver, goal or purpose, the message, which can be referred to as the content, the medium or channel of communication, feedback, environment, which can also be referred to as the context. We want to talk about there are seven elements or factors which make up the process of communication. Like we said earlier on, the source or sender. It is the one who initiate the action of communicating. The audience or receiver is the person for whom the communication is intended. The goal or purpose is the sender's reason for communicating. The desired result of the communication too. We also have message or content is the information conveyed. The medium/channel is the means or method used for conveying the message. Feedback is the receiver response to the communication as observed by the sender. The environment or context is the background in which communication takes place. Source. Source is the originator of the message. It is the person or persons who want to communicate a message to another person or a group of people. The source of a message can be an individual speaker addressing a group, a child asking for candy, or a couple sending out invitation to a family reunion, or a person writing a letter. It also means that it can be viewed from different perspectives or examples. For example, a child asking for a candy can be an originator of a message. A couple sending invitations for a family reunion, a party, can be a source of a message. The message, on the other hand, is the idea, thought, or feeling that the source wants to communicate. This message is encoded or converted into verbal or non-verbal symbols that will most likely be understood by the receiver. In the message, we have the encoding. Once the source has decided on the message to communicate, it must encode or convert that idea, thought, or feeling into a verbal or non-verbal symbols that will be most effectively understood by the receiver. The receiver. The receiver is the recipient of the message. The receiver can be an individual or group of people. Once the receiver hears the words and receives the non-verbal cue from the sender, she must or he must interpret or decode them if communication is to occur. In the receiver, we have decoding. Decoding is the process of making sense out of the message received. The receiver must decipher the language and behavior sent by the source so they will have meaning. After the receiver decodes this message, the receiver, now the source, can encode a return message and send it back to the person. So the receiver decodes the message, and after decoding it, he encodes to send it back to the person. Channel. Channel is another component process of communication. A channel is the medium by which the message is communicated. The source can utilize the channels of sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. For instance, if you want to communicate affection for another person, you can utilize a variety of channels or combination of channels. You can say I like you. You can give a hug, like a touch. Hug, I like you is like a sound. That's another medium of communication. You can give the person an hug, a hug, that's a touch. You can also wink an eye as a sight. You can send cookies that you baked, that's for taste. You can also deliver dozens of roses for smell. Those are the medium, the channels of communication: through sound, through touch, through sight, through taste, and through smell. We have context or environment. All communication occurs within a certain context. The context is made up of physical surroundings, the occasion in which the communication occurs, the time, the number of people present, noise level, and many other variables that can influence and affect the encoding of and decoding of the messages. These contents play an important role in the communication process. Feedback. The receiver also feels a reaction to the message. This reaction may be conscious or unconscious. It may cause some changes in the receiver facial expression. It definitely leads the receiver to think. The receiver may take some action if required. He or she may also reply to the message. The response and or a reply is feedback. When you give a response to a message or you reply a message, it is called feedback. The goal or purpose is the sender's reason for communicating. The desired the desired result of communication is also known as the goal. Or stages of communication. We have four stages of communication. Stage one, the sender conceptualizes and encodes the messages. I'll take that again. Stage one, the sender conceptualizes and encodes the message. Stage two, the sender chooses the channel and sends the message to the receiver. Stage three, the receiver receives and decodes the message. The stage four, the receiver chooses the channel and sends the feedback. Barriers to effective communication. There are different barriers to effective communication. Communication is not always successful. Several things can prevent the message from reaching the intended recipient or from having the desired effect on the recipient. Number one barrier is the physical barrier. These are external obstacles, often beyond direct control. We have a case of equipment failure in phones, postal system, or electronic media can delay or distort messages. We also have environmental noise in places like factories, which can interfere with face-to-face communication. We have information overload occurs when excessive information prevents messages from reaching intended audience. Number two barrier is semantic and language barriers. Semantic means pertaining to or arising from different meaning of word or other symbols. First of all, many words have multiple meanings. Words with multiple meaning can cause confusion, like charge, meaning different things to different professionals. Technical jargon can confuse those outside specific professions. Personal factors like age, education, and cultural background influence how people interpret words. We have the organizational barriers. These occur within institutional structures. Information lost through editing and filtering as messages pass through hierarchical levels. Deliberate suppression of information due to office policies or self-interest. These are organizational barriers. Over-reliance on written communication, as many employees may not thoroughly read or understand lengthy written messages. Horizontal communication barriers between peers competing for resources or recognition. So these are forms of organizational barrier. We have information filtering, information loss through editing, deliberate suppression of information. This is an over reliance on written communication or lengthy written messages. We have the cultural barriers. These emerge from group dynamics, the need to adopt specific behavioral pattern to be accepted by a group. I'll take that again. The need to adopt specific behavioral patterns to be accepted by a group. Communication difficulties arising when there are barriers to group membership. Another one, the replacement of effective communication with strategic behaviour when group acceptance is challenging. These are examples of cultural barrier. Person in position of authority as well as subordinates can be helped to overcome these barriers by training in effective communication. We're looking at how we can overcome barriers in communication. We have periodical review and reorganization of communication network are also needed to ensure the information reaches people in time. We have a case of health centers. Many organizations provide medical aid, gymnasium and recreation for the staff in an effort to keep down stress levels. We also have regulation like compulsory vacation after a number of months, years are also meant to ensure that employees avoid stress and fatigue. We have to cultivate all the communication skills including getting feedback and non-verbal communication. The management should also ensure the channels must be kept in good working condition. The intercom, notice board information on meeting must be kept up to date. Many companies which can afford it maintain soundproof rooms for meeting and take steps to reduce the noise level in the office. All these are the methods at which we can overcome barriers in communication. Well, there semiotic and language barriers can be overcome only by being careful with the use of language and by using words which can have clear meaning, by using short and simple sentences, and also by using visual aid whenever possible. Whenever possible, feedback must be got and given to ensure that there is common understanding of a message. I repeat that feedback must be got and given to ensure that there is common understanding of a message. Personal barriers can be overcome only by making a conscious effort and by training for better communication. To reduce cultural barrier, it is better not to assume similarity with those from other culture until you are sure. It is safer to assume difference till you are sure of similarity. So these are the ways we can use to overcome barriers in communication. Thank you for listening.